Hi quilting friends, I'm Linda Nitson this month to show you block 3 in the Die of the Month program for the Wicked quilt, which is behind me. So this month we're going to be doing the isosceles triangle and right is what the die says. Some people also may know it as the triangle in a square block because it will measure 4.5 inches square when we're finished assembling this block together. So what I need is 2 strips of fabric. I need the black and the green for this quilt. If you're changing out the color, be appropriate to what we're using here that you've matched. So I need 4 5-inch strips of the green, and I need 5 5.25-inch strips of the black. Okay, we will cut them separately, so I'm going to show you how to do the triangles, the center green triangles first. So let's just peel off our fabric, and I'm just going to show you how to get started. Cut all of them all at one time, and then I'll show you how to sew them together. So what I need to do, I have the isosceles triangle on one end of the die, and I have the right triangles on the the left side of the die. Right now we're just going to use the green. Do not get your triangle involved in the other background triangle pieces. So we just want to get started with it. And what I'm doing is I would take all of my strips at one time and I would lay them on top of the die. The reason for that is when I cut out the triangle, I can simply move the die over and create the rest of those triangles. I can flip the fabric over and I don't waste the other triangle that's hidden in between. And I'll show you what I mean by that when I start to the next level. So lay all 4 of your pieces on top. We need a cutting pad for the top and a cutting pad for the bottom. And if I want to save my cutting pads, I don't need to put my cutting pad over the other edge of the die shape that we're not cutting out. So I'm simply going to put my cutting pad over the fabric area where I have. And I need one on the top and one on the bottom. Today I'm using my Big Shot Plus machine. And I just get that started. And I do put it in an angle as it goes through the machine. That will help me with those straight edges. It helps for make a better cut. All right, and here's my isosceles triangles. Now what I was saying to get the next cut, simply flip your fabric over. Be very careful that you don't disrupt the pieces. And you may snip these tail edges off also. Helps keep everything clean. Get rid of that. And then realign your triangle underneath here just slightly. And you can do that with all 4 layers. Again, a cutting pad at the top and a cutting pad at the bottom, and feed it back through your machine. If I were to fold them back and forth this way with my long strip, I would end up with pieces that would be unusable. All right? And that's how you cut that piece. Now we're going to cut the black fabric, and of course there's a trick to that too. So I'm going to take my black fabric and I'm going to put it on the right triangles of the die. If you can see that very well with the camera or not. I can feel where the blade is of the fabric, and I want to go over by about 1/2 inch over the edge of that. And I want to be real close to the edge down here, which I am. And the other side is going to line up straight here. Now if I cut into this fabric with the extra triangle, it's going to cause me a problem. What I'm trying to do is get this extra fabric to be usable. So I'm going to fold this over, but when I fold it I want to make sure that it doesn't infringe on that other blade. So I can feel that with my finger. Okay? And I'm going to place a cutting pad on the top. Keep that fabric folded. It'll just crease. It's not going to hurt it at all. And again, I don't have to put the cutting pad all the way over the top because the area that I'm not going to be cutting, I don't need to use the cutting pads over. So, cutting pad on the bottom, cutting pad on the top, fabric sandwiched in, into the machine. I've got a Big Shot Plus still. Slight askew. Okay, the one goes there and the other goes there. But let me finish showing you how to continue cutting these pieces. So I'm just going to snip this off and snip this off. And I have this leftover piece here that will make another triangle. I'm simply going to lay it, so reposition it onto the fabric, or onto the die. Make sure I've got all of my edges covered, or covering the blade all the way up to the top, and I'm going to put my cutting pad back on and run that through the machine again. So just a little bit of extra on the front side will save you quite a bit of fabric on the back side. And there's another pair that would have ordinarily been waste. All right, let's get to sewing. Let's go ahead and separate these out. I'm just going to show you how to sew the one today, and then you can continue sewing the rest between now and next month. Okay, so we're going to take right sides together, and we're going to fold that on top of the green. And I'm going to match up the edges. They have been dog-eared for your convenience. So just line those up on the edges. I don't pin them, but you can. They will wiggle a little bit. So while you're sewing, go ahead and just make sure that they line up correctly. I will need my feeder piece of fabric because I am sewing on the diagonal to start. And then I'm going to feed that in on a 1/4 inch seam. And because I don't have any pins as I get down here to the edge, be sure and realign that and hold it with your finger. All right. Okay, just pressed it towards the black. That gives me a nice crease right here at the end. And then I'm going to flip this one right sides together. And again, we're going to line those edges up. I'm going to go ahead and sew from the bottom all the way up. And as you're sewing, make sure you keep those lined up because I didn't put any pins in it. I like to see just a shadow of the fabric that's behind so I know that it hasn't run away or hidden from me. Okay, so I ironed it with the seam allowance going towards the dark side. You want to make sure that you've got this beautiful point here, which is your 1/4 inch from the top. When I flip that over, you can see that you will also have wing pieces on the sides at the bottom of your 1/4 inch. That's your seam allowance. Make sure that you don't cut those off. You should have an equal square here. A triangle in a square should measure 4.5 inches across by 4.5 inches tall. If it does not, check your seam allowance, but it should measure completely so that it matches up with your first 2 blocks that you've made in your series. I hope you enjoy this one. You will need to make a total of 48 isosceles triangles, or the triangle in a square unit. When you get those all completed, check in with me for next month's Block 4. Enjoy!